Good evening, race fans, and welcome in to Season 9 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series. Tonight, we are here up in Virginia at the South Boston Speedway, and I'll tell you what, this is quite the track for our drivers to be at here tonight. It has made, looks like, 5 appearances here in ASRC across every single different car we have driven here in the Oval Series. Back in season number 2, all the way back in 2021, the first ever race here for this league was won by Connor Wagner in the street stock. And then it took a bit of a break all the way up into season 5, where Brian Zabelski took home the win in a modified. Then season 6, Benjamin Harst took home another win in a modified as well. Season 7 went back to Koi Hazalu in the late model, and season 8, last season, Tyler McRae managed to take home the win, so potentially Mr. McRae could be looking to make this win number 2 under his belt here at this track. But even more notably than just that, for the last 2 seasons, the South Boston Speedway has played host to the Oval Series Championship back in Season 7 and Season 8. So this track, not only is it pretty dang tricky from just being so incredibly narrow compared to some of the other tracks we've been to, this track also has just a whole lot of memories and tension and experience, I guess is the best way to put it, for the drivers of the ASRC Oval Series. Of course, before we get on down to the starting grid here tonight and get ready to roll things off here, if you do want to join Attrition Sim Race Campus, be sure to check out at ASRC Racing on Twitter, or head on over to www.asrcracing.com. Only requirement to join the league is to be a clean and respectful driver, and while we are getting into the closing chapters of season number 9, anyone is still welcome to join and just come out and have fun. And of course, season number 10 is right around the corner. We have 3 races left in the season after this one, and that'll be an off week, and then season number 10 will be kicking off. That said, drivers making their way on down to the starting grid here, so let's take a look down at our starting lineup here tonight. Starting out on the pole here this evening, that is our championship points leader coming into tonight's event. That is the 145 of Mr. Travis Sukup. To his outside, fittingly, it's the driver in P number 2 for the championship standings here. That's the 99 of Tyler McRae. Back in P number 3, the driver out of Topeka, Kansas, and that's going to be Garrett Streets, rolling the 33 off in P number 3. 4th place, going to go back to the 48 of Robert Kelm, with the 11 of Sean Patrick, rounding out the top 5 for Dropping Bombs Racing. 6th place, going to go back to that 4-time champion, that number 85, that's Brian Zabelski. 7th place is going to go back to the 93 of Jason Gardner here tonight, league admin in that number 93, rolling it off back in P number 7. And to his outside, a driver that has been here with the Attrition Sim Race Campus for as long as I have been. He has been attending the Oval Series in some capacity for the past 2 years now, and he's probably competed in ASRC even longer than the Oval Series has existed. That's the 25 of Rob Haynes. Back in P number 9, the 3 of Jeremy Morrow making his 3rd start of the season, with the 337 of Bill Watkins rounding out the top 10, and the number 70 of Jason Mong rounding out the field here tonight for the largest grid that we have had this entire season. Green flag up in the air, we are going racing here at the South Boston Speedway. 100 laps is the distance, as always, here in the ASRC Oval Series, and right now, Sukup is off to a pretty good start, but things are all over the place back behind them. Multiple cars scraping the outside wall coming out of turn number 1, but we mostly got it single filed out here. That said, Gardner getting pretty high and loose off the corner coming out of 2, and Brian Zabelski just behind him in that number 85. Was thinking about making a pass there, didn't quite manage to make it stick, but he was definitely thinking about it. Drivers at this very narrow track here this evening, it's incredibly difficult to pass, and while of course tire concerns are always a big deal here in the ASRC Oval Series, at a track that is just so difficult to pass as this one is, sometimes those early restart passes are actually what you need to be going for here. And again, Jason Gardner scraping against the outside wall just a little bit in that 93. That's going to allow Sabelski to close the gap just a bit here tonight. That said, still call it about 0.3 of a second between these two drivers. A little bit further up ahead, Garrett Streets. Robert Kelm was putting the pressure down on him, backed off just a little bit in that number 48, but still something to be keeping an eye on as these drivers try and figure out how to navigate themselves around America's hometown track. This track, the most narrow track on the schedule here this season. Not the shortest. It is pretty close. This track comes in at 0.4 of a mile, or 0.64 kilometers in length. So it is actually, I believe, tied with Southern National last week as one of the shortest tracks on the schedule. I do believe we had one shorter than that earlier in the season. But either way, things are tricky here. Things are treacherous. Things are undoubtedly dangerous. And that is part of just what makes this short track racing so exciting. And again, the pressure is on up here for the final podium position. Streets and Kelm battling it out. Streets making his first start of the season in that number 33. He is a driver that did get 1 or 2 late model wins under his belt back in season 7 and 8. And now looking to try and get a win here in the street stock. Bringing out a paint scheme that is vaguely reminiscent of the Gravedigger. I don't know if that is entirely intentional by that 33, but I'm getting a little bit of the vibes from that car. And speaking of the 33, he's actually the only driver here in the ASRC Oval Series that has joined me up in the commentator's booth. He got wrecked out back last season at the Phoenix International Raceway, and he said, you know what? I've got nothing better to do. Let's join Icy up in the broadcasting booth, and we had a pretty good time back there. At 48, Robert Kelm, he managed to get around Streets. He is in the final podium position now, but he is getting incredibly loose off of every single corner in that number 48 machine. Looks like he's making it work for him. He is setting some pretty good lap times out there on the speedway, but regardless, does look like there is some handling issues in that Dirty Mo radio entry. A little bit further up in the field, McRae and Sukup are in the position that we have seen them in all season, breaking away the field and nose to tail for the lead of this race. But we've actually shaken things up a little bit here this evening, and I think that might be part of why we have such a large field here tonight. The league actually decided that the setups for the remainder of the season are going to be closed. No more adjusting your car, minus a couple of small tweaks like your steering ratio and your brake bias, but no more being able to freely work on your suspension or any of the other tunings. We are now using the iRacing fixed setups that are provided by the developers. And I'll tell you what, while that has definitely narrowed down the gap throughout the back of the field, Sukup and McRae, both drivers for Droppin' Bombs Racing, are on an absolute tear here this evening. These two drivers already a good nearly 4-second lead over anyone else in the speedway here tonight. A bit further back, Garrett Streets having a bit of trouble. He has lost 2 more positions now. He's lost the position to Sean Patrick, and he's lost the position to Brian Sabelski. That's going to cycle him all the way back to 6th here this evening. Aside from Jeremy Morrow back in 10th, who has lost 1 position, Streets is the only other driver on the speedway right now to have lost spots here tonight. That said, only 20 laps into this 100-lap event here tonight. Still a long way to go, but not how that driver is wanting his evening to be going, making his first start of the season, making a return after a little bit of a hiatus. A little bit further up in the field, looks like potentially Robert Kelm got a bit loose through the corner, because there was a bit of a check out there. Patrick, Sabelski, and Streets were all hard on the brakes there. And Patrick's going to look way down low on that 48. Kellum going to get really loose on corner entry. He keeps it pointing in the right direction. There's a little bit of a bump. And that's going to be the number 48. He's got it saved. He didn't go around. Everyone managed to avoid that turning into a bigger incident than it needed to. But now that 48, his tires look incredibly hot here tonight. He is slipping and sliding all over the place. He might as well be driving on ice here this evening, race fans. He's got speed under his hood. He's still setting pretty dang fast lap times here tonight, but he's just having trouble keeping the car planted under him. You can see him there getting loose through the corner. Let's take a couple of laps on board with this number 48 just to see what he's dealing with here. Riding on board with Robert Kellum here this evening, and take a look at just how much he's having to saw that wheel here tonight to get the car rolling the way he wants it to roll. And just like that, he's going to lift off and let Sabelski go on by. That 48 is definitely not handling the way he wants it to be here this evening. And again, loose off the corner. He's definitely cooking the tires underneath the 48. And of course, only one spare set is available to these drivers. So if he's using them up as much as he is here, only 27 laps into tonight's event, we're just going to have to keep an eye on him and see, will he have a car that is in drivable condition by the end of this race? Because with how he's driving right now, if he uses the second set of tires the way he's using these ones, he might have a little bit of difficulty getting to the end of tonight's event. A little bit further back in the field, this is the battle back for 10th and 11th. The drivers battling it out to stay in the top 5, and actually this is the battle for 9th as well. These three drivers all duking it out back in the back of the field. Jason Mong, Jeremy Morrow, Bill Watkins. And Morrow is going to be going up high in that number 3 machine. He's got it rolling, but Jason Mong is going to be taking a peek down there just a bit in that number 70 machine. These three drivers, all relatively experienced here in the ASRC Oval Series, with the exception of Morrow. Morrow is actually only making his 3rd start here with the Oval Series. And aside from that, his only experience here with these drivers are 1 or 2 races back in the Dirt Series last year. And Morrow, incredibly loose off the corner. Again, he keeps it going, but that's another driver up in the wall. That's the 48 of Robert Kellum, all the way back to last place. He just lost 7 positions just like that in that number 48, and it looks like he's going to be pulling it on down to pit lane here this evening. And that is not his pit stall. It looks like Kellum maybe, yep, sure enough, 48 of Robert Kellum has retired from tonight's event. That's going to leave us with 10 drivers out on the speedway. Kellum decided, no, I don't like how my car is handling. I don't like what's going on here. He's going to go ahead and pack it on up and get ready for next week's event at the North Wilkesboro Speedway. Currently looking at the battle for the lead here. This is between McRae and Sukup. These two drivers, a full 6 seconds between McRae and Sukup and the rest of the field here tonight. Mind you, they are only setting 16-second laps here, so that's going to be turning into lap traffic very quickly here tonight. And again, the battle is heating up back in the back of the pack. This is again Morrow and Watkins side by side. Morrow outside in that number 3, that purple and white entry just behind him. Watkins in the numberless Dirtbag Racing entry. He is being scored as the 337 on our timing and scoring sheet, but he is the numberless car out there on the speedway. Last time by, Watkins set a 17.35, so a little bit off the pace in that 337. Our race leader last time by set a 16.72, so pretty considerable of a gap, but that time, last time by, everyone now has just set a lap time within the 16-second range, roughly about 3/10 between McRae and the last place driver in the field last time by. But now Mauro is starting to have a little bit of handling issues in that number 3. Now he is having a bit of trouble getting the car to rotate. These street stocks, pretty heavy cars for what they're considered. They more or less are cars just taken off the road, put some racing safety equipment in there, and you are good to go. Of course, here on iRacing, the street stock is an identical car for every driver, minus how they decide to tune it. But of course, in the real world, the street stock is a pretty ubiquitous class. It seems like pretty much every short track in North America has their own street stock division, and it probably has some variation in rules from the others. So no two street stocks in the real world are pretty much ever going to be the same, but here on the iRacing.com platform, everyone is working with the same equipment. That here they all have the same cars with the same bodies, the same engines, the same tuning options. Of course, here now that we have it as a fixed setup series for the remainder of the season, the amount of adjustments these drivers can make to their cars is very substantially limited compared to what they were able to do for the past couple of races. And just there, Rob Haynes having a bit of difficulty in that number 25, but he's still got it rolling in the right direction. Sometimes that is half the battle. Last week, back in Red Light Racing, a Thursday night series that Rob Haynes competes in, he managed to bring home a top 5 at the Phoenix International Raceway in the SK Modified. I believe he said that that was his best ever finish in that league, and he has been competing there as long as he has been competing here in Attrition Sim Race Campus. So at 25, he has been on a little bit of a hot streak for these past couple of weeks. Certainly running back in P number 8, but we still got halfway left to go in this race. Potential for him to make it back on up here tonight. And of course, one of our drivers out here in the field, that is a Twitch streamer. So if you want to check out the perspective of one of the drivers out here in the Attrition Sim Race Campus field, be sure to check out Rob Haynes 82 on Twitch. Further up in the field, a driver that we have not talked about much at all here this evening, that is the 11 of Sean Patrick, with Brian Sabelski hot on his heels. Sabelski looking to try and break his way into the podium here this evening, and Patrick scraping the wall right there is going to be doing Sabelski a bit of a favor. They're coming into tonight's event. Looks like Sabelski is being scored back into the 4th position in the championship standings. Currently looking as Sukup in the lead with 186 points, McRae with 177. Then a little bit of a jump back to P3 for Steven Rex with 128. And Sabelski then back with 109. And just behind Sabelski is Gardner with 101. So Gardner, he is in the top 5 of the championship standings here tonight. And the yellow flag is out for the first time here this evening. And it looks like Jeremy Mauro is down on pit lane. First caution of the evening on lap number 53. And got to remember, here in the ASRC Oval Series, the drivers decided this season that caution laps will not count. So we will be going green flag racing again after this caution gets all sorted out with 47 to go. With that said, let's take a look back and see what happened to the driver of that number 3 car to bring out our first caution of the evening. Head down into turns 1 and 2, and the car just snaps out on him. And he tries to get it recovered. He gets recovered, and it snaps on him again. A little bit of an unwinnable situation there for the driver of the number 3. He immediately takes the tow down to pit lane, getting out of the way of the race leaders. Looks like he did try to avoid letting the caution flag fly here, but it just didn't quite work out for that number 3. And that's going to be pretty costly, because he didn't have that much damage to the car. So if he really wanted to, he could have just pulled it on into pit lane manually. But taking the tow like that, that is probably a good minute and a half or so that he has to wait for his car to be towed. So that is a minute and a half, effectively, of penalty time because he waited for the tow truck to come and get him. So that could be a little bit disastrous for Morrow's race here tonight. That said, of course, caution laps do not count. So if a caution were to come out again, Morrow should be able to make up the time that he lost taking that tow. And just like that, does look like he is getting work done on that number 3 right now. Just a little bit of progress, even if it's not all that much. Every little bit counts here this evening. That said, we're stacking them back up 2 by 2. And Garrett Streets is the only driver that did not come to pit lane under that caution. So Garrett Streets is going to be our new race leader when we go green flag racing again. The question is that going to work out for him? And speaking of drivers that we don't know how things are going to play out, Jeremy Morrow is back on the speedway in that number 3. He's got it rolling again. That said, he's not got it rolling very fast. It looks like he's being told to let the race leaders by, which is a bit of a problem when we are going green quite literally in this corner. Pace car's off. Waiting. And green flag's up in the air. We are rolling. Race control said that's good enough. And now Garrett Streets has to defend the race lead as the only driver to have not come down pit lane, and presumably one of the only drivers that has not put any fresh tires on his car. And you can see that 33 looks like he has a parachute strapped to the back of it. Maybe even, dare I say, an anchor. Last time by, Streets' lap time was almost half a second slower than the rest of these cars we see up here in the front of the field. And now everyone is going to be passing on by, as there's just nothing he can do but let these cars on the fresher tires run on by, and nearly 3 wide for a second there. Sean Patrick going to get around Streets. That's going to bump Streets back to 6th. And now there's a part in the C. Streets can get his car back down to the inside line, and that will allow him to keep it rolling at least a little bit. Now he can go and potentially start to work on going on the defensive here. That said, all the way back to 6 just like that, and he's going to go up high again. That 70 of Jason Mong is going to be the next car to get around that slower number 33. That said, he's still holding on the outside just a bit here. Not going to have the run off the corner he needs to keep it alongside him. Or maybe he is. I stand mistaken there. A little bit of a wobble for Haynes coming out of the corner, and he's got Bill Watkins right behind him. And up in the front, things are just as spicy. Sean Patrick just got around Jason Gardner. He is now in position number 4, looking to try and catch back up to Sabelski and break his way into the top 3. Try and bring home a Droppin' Bombs podium sweep again, just like they did last season. That said, Sean Patrick here filling in for Steven Rex. Of course, they're going to be scored separately as they are 2 different drivers. But since Steven Rex is not here, Sean Patrick going to be bringing out the Droppin' Bombs race and banner here tonight in that number 11. And Tyler McRae, he is the race leader yet again, but he does not have a whole lot of room to work with here tonight. Sukup is right behind him, quite literally. Call it probably about a yard between these 2 drivers through the middle of the corner. And Sabelski is not too far back either, but the second caution flag of the evening is going to come out, and it looks like Jason Gardner's around. Jason Gardner, Jeremy Morrow. And I think Watkins might be involved as well. Second caution of the evening here on lap number 62, coming to 63. And you can hear that number 93 Dragon on the speedway. There is something critically wrong with that race car. Let's see if we can't take a look back here and see what just happened to Jason Gardner, because that looks like it might just be race-ending damage for that 93, and he misses his pit box at well. That's not going to do him any favors here this evening. So let's take a look back. Looking at that number 93 machine, He was running up in the top 5 when this caution came out here this evening, heading down into turns 1 and 2, and he gets loose off the corner. It is a repeat of what happened to Jeremy Morrow, and Streets piles in, Rob Haynes piles in, Bill Watkins piles in, and finally Jeremy Morrow rounds out that pileup. That is many a car that is going to be having a very bad time here. Let's take another look back at that. Maybe even break out the blimp camera for this one. Not one that we use very often, but I think we really need to get a wide shot to see what all just went wrong there. Heading down into turn number 2, Gardner's car snapped on him just the exact same way that Morrow's did, and there's the 70 getting involved, and then everyone else just kind of piles on in. Like I said, one of the most narrow tracks on the schedule here this evening, so it's not entirely surprising to see what all just went out there. Let's take a look back. Let's ride on board with Jeremy Morrow again, see if we can't get a little bit of an onboard view of what these drivers saw heading into that incident. Coming down into turns 1 and 2, you can see Gardner get a little bit loose. Everyone's still racing, and then there's trouble. Everyone slams on the brakes, and the track is blocked just like that. So that's going to bring out caution number 2, and that is going to bring a couple other drivers down to pit lane. Rob Haynes going to be coming down for his second pit stop, and that's also going to be prompting Garrett Streets to make his first stop of the evening. That said, McRae, Sukup making up the front row. We are going green flag racing yet again, and McRae gets an incredibly good jump on the start there. Sukup, not a whole lot he can do. He was pretty much asleep behind the wheel there, and now Patrick and Sabelski battling for the 3rd position. Patrick up in the wall. He's going to lose a little bit of ground there, and that's going to allow Sabelski to hold on to P number 3 for the time being, but Sean Patrick, that 11 car, is going to be pushing with everything he's got to bring home another clean sweep for the Dropping Bombs racing team. Just behind him, Garrett Streets and Jason Mong, despite coming down to pit lane that time by. Streets still in P number 6 in that number 33, and now he's got some new tires to work with. That's going to be the last set of tires that he has to work with, though, so he's got to make them last these final 35 laps around the speedway here tonight. Looking to try and see if he can't get his way into the top 5 and bring home a solid finish for that 33 car, making his first start of the season, making a bit of a return to the league after a couple of weeks off. And a lot of these drivers wanting to come out and test their mettle now that the playing field has been leveled even more equally than before. Of course, it was already fairly equal back when it was open setup, but some people simply are a little bit more comfortable and knowledgeable with car tuning than others, so everyone being required to run the same car tuning here tonight has only made the field even more competitive, and Streets is going to get around that 70 of Mong for position number 5. Mong really loose off the corner, but he's got it rolling. And just behind them, that's Rob Haynes and Bill Watkins battling it out for 7th and 8th. Haynes up a position from where he qualified. It's not much, but every little spot counts here this evening. 30 laps left to go here tonight. Everyone has come down pit lane, so everyone should be good on fuel for the remainder of this race. Take a quick look down at the strategy here this evening. Pretty much everyone on the speedway is on the same strategy here, with the exception of Garrett Streets, who stayed out for that first caution. He pitted 10 laps later than anyone else. But otherwise, everyone out here on the field is running the same pit strategy here. Pit under the yellow. Don't risk losing laps under a green flag pit stop, because here, if you pit under green, you will lose laps. There is no ifs, whens, or buts about it. And quite honestly, you'll probably lose 2 or 3 laps just going off of how long it takes to work on these cars. It's roughly between 13 and 17 seconds to change the tires, but fuel is the big deciding factor here. Of course, there's no reason for drivers to take a full fuel tank. There is absolutely no reason for them to do it here tonight because the race is not long enough to necessitate that. But a full tank of fuel in these street stocks takes approximately 45 seconds. So in some hypothetical scenario, if one of these drivers did have to take a full tank of gas here tonight, that would be putting them at least 3, if not 4 laps down under green flag conditions. So everyone maybe a little bit indecisive on what caution to pit under, but everyone agreed here that pitting under yellow is the play. 24 laps to go here, looking at the battle for the lead. These top 3 drivers still all under a blanket. McRae, Sukup, and Sabelski, your top 3. Sukup was the pole sitter here tonight, so he has lost a position. Of course, Tyler McRae was back in P number 2, so trading spots with Sukup has put him up 1, and then Sabelski up 3 spots from where he qualified. Sabelski is having a pretty good showing here tonight, especially considering for the past, I want to say 4 races roughly, Sabelski has not managed to bring home a podium. It has always been 4th or 5th place behind the Droppin' Bombs racing driver. So Sabelski probably feeling pretty good up here running in P3 in that number 85, but he needs to bring home a win if he wants to contest the championship from McRae and Sukup. And Sukup, these 2 drivers may be teammates, but Sukup is looking to get another win to his name. He just needs 1 more win here this evening to tie McRae for the most wins in the ASRC Oval Series for a single season. Of course, Sukup 5 wins to his name here this season needs 6. Last season, McRae brought home 6 wins to his name. And these 2 drivers, they've been working together as friends for years now, but when it comes out to being on the track, it's a matter of winning. There are no team orders here between these 2. It may the better man win, more or less. And right now, Sukup is putting the pressure down on that number 99, but will it be enough to make the pass in these next 17 laps? With how narrow this track is, a pass is going to be difficult. And as tough as it always is to say, especially regarding a teammate, that 145 might have to break out a little bit of the chrome horn if he wants to take home the win here this evening. Either that, or he's going to have to get incredibly lucky for McRae to make a mistake. And depending on luck, especially this late into the season, this late into the race, is not what you want to be doing. A little bit further back, Streets is starting to put the pressure down on that other Droppin' Bombs racing driver, that number 11 of Sean Patrick. Looks like taking those tires a little bit later than everyone else. That slightly alternate strategy that 33 is on, that no other car on the speedway is working with, is doing him some good here tonight. Streets is setting faster lap times each lap than Patrick fairly consistently, only by a couple of thousandths here tonight. But every thousandth counts, especially at a track as small as this. And again, last time by, Streets 2 thousandths of a second faster than Patrick. So Streets has the speed under his belt to get around that number 11 machine. It's just a question of, can he make it work here? Trying a little bit of the inside, backing out of it last second, not wanting to spin the 11 and bring out another caution. But with 12 laps to go, things are getting a little bit desperate. Someone has to make a move. Either that, or they're just going to have to resign to their fates, because when we go around the line this time by, it's going to be 10 laps to go, and that's getting into the closing hours of tonight's race. Big double high five up in the air. 10 laps to go around this speedway, and multiply that with 4 corners. It sounds like a lot, but it's really not. But that's 40 more opportunities for these drivers to try and make a pass. And Streets is going to look down to the inside, down the front stretch, going to back out of it again. Patrick really working to close the door down on the inside line. He knows that Streets isn't going to be able to make a pass on the outside line work. And loose off the corner there for that 33. Pushing the car with really everything he's got. You can see he is really trying here, and that's why he's having those little bits of handling issues coming out of the corners on corner exit, getting really loose there. Currently these two cars closest battle on the speedway. 7 laps to go here tonight. And Street's going to scrape the wall just a little bit and get a little bit loose down into 3 and 4. Not going to have the run he needs across the start-finish line to catch up to Patrick. And he's starting to fall back now. He is losing that speed that he had under his hood. He is pushing his car as hard as he can, and it's starting to put a burden on his tires. Big high five up in the air. 5 more times around the speedway. 5 more chances for Streets to make this pass. And again, really loose through the corner. I don't think he has the speed he needs to make it work. That said, he is closing the gap on Patrick just a little bit, but with that scrape in the wall, it's back a little bit further apart. And again, just pretty much scraping the wall every single time down the speedway. 3 laps to go. And Streets is starting to fall back just a little bit. But as Streets begins to fall back, it looks like the battle for the lead is starting to tighten up as we get to 2 to go here. 2 laps left around the speedway, and Sukup is gaining on McRae. Will it be enough to stick in these next 2 laps, though? White flag up in the air this time by. McRae just needs to get around the speedway one more time, and he will take home his 4th win of the season. And sure enough, as we come out of turn number 4, Tyler McRae going to be taking home his 4th win here in Season 9 of the ASRC Oval Series. Falling back behind him, Sukup and Sabelski going to round out the top 3 here tonight. So we will be trying to get an interview with all 3 of these drivers who managed to bring home podium finishes here tonight. But will we get a little bit of a celebration from Tyler McRae? Looks like the answer is no. He's going to be saving that car for next week. Not wanting to use up that engine. So, of course, we will be back here in just a moment with interviews with your top 3 finishers. So don't go anywhere, race fans. We'll be right back. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the South Boston Speedway round 9 of the ASRC Oval Series, now in the book. And up here in the booth with me, now 4-time winner here this season, Mr. Tyler McRae. You've got another win to your name. This is the track that you won at last season, back in season number 8 in the late model. and this now makes you the only driver here in ASRC to have 2 wins to their name at the South Boston Speedway. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done here this evening?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. It's fun running out there with the guys, and Mike is a good competitor, and DBR guys keep us laughing. They're a good time.
Yes, sir. Y'all all put on a heck of a race here this evening, and a little bit more chaotic than I think some of us expected. A couple more cautions than we've seen a little bit earlier in the season. Do those have any effect on the strategy that you were bringing in here tonight?
Nope, I think everything worked out all right. I think some of the guys were a little closer because of the new fixed setup we switched to, and so it was good to have them some good racing. But sometimes when you run real close, you get a few extra wrecks. So it was a good time.
Yep, and of course, next week we head to a track that everyone here in ASRC probably knows pretty well. It's going to be North Wilkesboro. It's the track that the ASRC Oval Series started on all the way back in, I believe, late December 2020. And of course, it was in the street stock. How are you feeling going back to the track where it all began next week?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, I think always got a chance to run pretty good at most tracks we go to. So not too worried. Just look forward to it. Get another good run in.
Well, that sounds like a plan to me. Of course, before I send you out and let you go celebrate getting another one to your name, the microphone's all yours, Mr. McRae. Who do you want to thank for getting that 99 up here in Victory Lane?
Yeah, one thing ASRC, they put on a fun show. We have a good time. They try to switch it up this week to make things a little more competitive. And I see a few people were, and I think if they had more fun, I think it was worth it. Um, Appreciate you on your broadcast and your little wits that you put on there. Um, all the guys at DBR and simspeedshop.com, appreciate them.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out as always, and I look forward to seeing you next week in North Wilkesboro.
All right, I appreciate you. Have a good night.
And coming on back into P number 2, it's the driver that we have seen pretty much sharing every single lap red with Tyler McRae here this season. The driver that still has the most wins here in season number 9, and the driver that I believe is still in the lead of the point standings coming out of tonight's race. Mr. Sukup, you got another 100 laps to your name here tonight. What do you think you might have had to do different to get around Tyler and bring home that 6th win?
I was just hoping he was going to get tired. I know he had the monkeypox vaccination this morning, so I figured he'd be a little tired.
Yeah, that's definitely a rough one to be having, but he still managed to bring it home. But you were right there this entire race. There was pretty much about only a tenth of a second between you two for most of this race. So you were very much competitive and up there and entirely vying for the lead here tonight. Did those cautions coming out mess anything up for your strategy here this evening?
No, it actually kind of helped me a little bit. My wheel had kind of come off the table a little bit, so we were trying to hold it on there. So it was nice that it came out.
Well, it's always good to have the little bit of chaos that occurs in these races to play out in your favor. Of course, next week, North Wilkesboro Speedway, that was a track that you were pretty fast at in the late model, but now we're going to be taking the street stocks to it. How you feel about next week?
I would have to say that that's one of my least favorite tracks. So I'm hoping to just scrape off the bottom on that one.
Sounds like a plan. You never know how it might play out, but one way or another, you got folks out in the chat rooting for you, and I believe in you. You've got this. But of course, for now, before I let you go and celebrate getting another podium to your name and start getting ready for the track you may not be looking forward to, who do you want to thank on the side of that 145 for getting you up here?
I thank the league, this the ARC. It's a lot of fun. I don't know why more people don't jump in. I think everybody's pretty decent drivers. We have a good time. So I'd like to see more people come out here. But I appreciate the league and DBR, everybody from DBR.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you next week at North Wilkesboro.
All right, 10-4.
Alrighty. And bring it on home, P number 3. It's been a month since I've last been able to talk to you, Mr. Sabelski, but you got it up here once again. How are you feeling now that you've got another podium to your name here this season?
Better. I feel like I should have had more, but just the way that my luck's been with the setups, I've just not been able to really get anything going on that compared to everybody else. So it's kind of been a bit of a slog. But now that things kind of went back to fixed, feels like it's a little more. I don't necessarily know. I guess even probably the way where it's a little bit more just how you drive it than anything else. And thought we had a shot to pull it off tonight, but I don't know, about halfway through that second set, I brushed the wall, and apparently now when you touch the wall any bit, it feels like it breaks the car, even if it doesn't. Just got loose after that, and I don't know why, but it was. I was just trying to hold on there for like the last 20 laps.
Well, you did a pretty good job of at least bringing it home in P number 3. That's still a pretty dang good finish, and considering Steven Rex was not present tonight, that should, if it doesn't give you position 3 in the championship standings here this evening, it will at least incredibly significantly close the gap between you two and potentially let you get into the podium next week at North Wilkesboro. And I know North Wilkesboro, I've been saying this a lot, it is the track where this whole shindig all started, but I think it's probably, out of anyone we've talked to here this evening, especially special to you, because you were there for that race, and if I remember correctly, I think you won it.
Yep. Yeah, I did win that one. Mostly because Jason got hooked into the wall on accident, and he was faster than me, and we may have killed him that night. Killed his car, at least. Didn't kill him, obviously, but yeah, it's a good track. It's a fun track. It should be good next week with the fixed setups. I think it was a good decision to move to that, just because it seems to have closed up some of the disparity between the haves and the have-nots, and the people that really can get in there and set things up perfectly, and those of us who are kind of like, I don't have a whole lot of time to do it, so I'm using the baseline and kind of tweaking it to how I remember I like it, and then just praying that it works with their track conditions.
Yeah, I don't remember what qualifying times looked like, but I know in practice, pretty much all 11 of you were within roughly 0.3 of a second of each other, so that's not a very big gap. So I do think the fixed setups here have definitely brought the field a little bit closer together, and I'm certainly excited to see what these last 3 races are going to bring.
I think it'll be good. I think it'll be fun. It's a good bunch of group to race with. I think contrary to maybe Travis and Tyler tonight, that caution kind of burnt me. We were starting to catch them on that about halfway through the race, and was in really good shape to maybe make a run at him at the end there, kind of chopping down a little bit by bit. Then that caution came out, and I was just like, well, there goes my tire advantage. So ended up having to push a little harder maybe than I wanted to for the last bit to kind of keep up with everyone. But yeah, just want to thank folks at McConey Setup Shop for all their wonderful support. Obviously, Jason and the league for putting this on so I can do it on Monday nights. Have a good time. It's good. I've had a really crummy week of racing on the road side. Oval side has actually somehow been very good, including tonight. So I'm hoping things kind of improve roadside for me, and hopefully keep going on the oval side. And maybe next week we can move up 1 or 2 more spots and try and steal a win here.
Good deal. Well, I certainly look forward to it, and I think you've already preemptively answered the last couple of questions I got for you. So, of course,
I know how these things go. Of course, no
and
problem. Sorry to steal your thunder.
hey, it works. We got what we need to say out, and now we can all start getting ready for what is bound to be a hectic race at North Wilkesboro next week. Of course, I gotta thank you for coming out, and I look
No
forward to
problem.
seeing you next week.
Yep. Not a problem.
And you heard it here first, folks. Tyler McRae, Travis Sukup, Brian Sabelski, your top 3 finishers here tonight. Tyler McRae making it win number 2 here at the South Boston Speedway, the first driver in ASRC to bring home a second win at this speedway. 4th place going to go back to Mr. Sean Patrick in that number 11, followed by the 33, a Garrett Streets, rounding out the top 5 in his first start of the season. 6th place going to go back to the 70 of Jason Mong, followed by another driver making their first start of the season, a veteran here in ASRC, but a rookie here in season number 9. That's the 25 of Rob Haynes, bringing it home P number 7. 8th place going to go back to that 337 of Mr. Bill Watkins, followed by Jeremy Morrow in the 3, back in P number 9, with Jason Gardner rounding out the top 10 in that 93. And finally, rounding out the largest field that we have had here this season, that's going to be the number 48 of Mr. Robert Kelm. That said, that's just about all we got for y'all here at the South Boston Speedway here this evening. Next week, heading on over to North Carolina for another 100 laps at the North Wilkesboro Speedway, a track that is always in my mind one of the most unique ovals out there, and of course the track where this league all began. The very first ever ASRC oval race was held at that track, and I think it's going to be a very nostalgic experience for a lot of these oval series drivers to be going back there in the street stock for the first time in a little bit over a year and a half. But for now, that's all we got from the South Boston Speedway. Of course, a big thank you from me and a big thank you from everyone at Attrition Sim Race Campus for all the support out in the stream, everyone out in chat, everyone tuning in here this evening. And we all look forward to seeing y'all out here again next week. Have a good evening, race fans.